And oh yeah, maybe I should talk a little bit about before I go, maybe I should talk a little bit of what I actually thought of the game now that I'm kind of finished with it. I mean, okay, so like the story is whatever. Okay, fine. The story was never meant to be like a really big, a really dramatic, or really like, oh, you wouldn't have been able to predict what would have happened, or it's something like that. But if the story is it's kind of lighthearted. I mean, there are kind of douchebags, but you know, like good's gonna win in the end, right? I mean, Mail is she's sort of bordering on the borderline between good and evil, but she's not a bad kid. And like in terms of like the plot is whatever, but the dialogue kind of is what really makes this game. Because like the gameplay is alright. There are some like flaws with it. It's more like first is like the lack of a map. For one, that would have been really nice. And unfortunately, there was no map available. And sometimes the bosses, it's not really obvious. Well, it's like it's not a really interesting. The bosses weren't really that interesting because a lot of it kind of boiled down to like just exploits, or not exploits, or just hitting the weakness over and over again. Whereas like, and like there's not even different phases. Well, there were some bosses with different phases, but I don't know what happened near the end. It's like all the bosses were just the same throughout. Even the Overlord, the epic battle, was kind of like, yeah, that's it. I mean, in some ways I'm glad it turned out that way. But the other thing that is that the music's okay too. I'll kind of remember it, but it's not like Metroid or something. In some ways, this game is a lot like Super Metroid, in that it's very equipment based, but you don't really gain too many new abilities. It's kind of like you just kind of hack and slash, and that's not a bad thing. But it makes the controls are okay. Like sometimes you get hit by things you wouldn't have expected, and like let's see, and like let me think. I had something. Oh yeah, like the battle system. The challenge is just good enough. Like it's a little bit almost too hard, but in some ways it's just hard enough that it makes you mad enough to keep going if you have the skill to do it. And like I was struggling a lot in some of the bosses, but eventually like once you kind of figure, like you can still figure, at least with loading anywhere, you can figure out the weaknesses. The other thing that bothers me too is the scrolling. The fact that when you walk, you're really close to the edge of the screen, so you can't react fast enough to something that's going to be ahead of you. And also the one thing that really bothered me was like when you drop down and sometimes you land on an enemy that you didn't want to. That really sucked too. But like in terms like at least all the enemies aren't too difficult, and like for the most part the controls are pretty good. I mean there's some range issues some occasionally, but like it's still like once you figure out how to do it, you're fine. And finally, the voice acting is like it's the 90s. Like we gotta be a little bit more lenient. And like I think what they were going for was more of a Saturday morning cartoon kind of feel. Mail is really good. Like Mail is probably the best performance in the whole game because she's really good. Like she would actually stack up against like voice actors today. The other people, well, there's some controversial choices, and like just having different accents throughout from the same race of people, and like it's just so, some of working design's decisions are so random, but I mean I guess that's part of the charm of it. Like you know that if you see this game you can see exactly how much they tried, and that's like they really try to make this game like special, and they put their own touches and like their own comedy writing, for better or worse. Like I'm still like, I'm okay with the Schwarzenegger references because that could have been slid in universe, but like the whole talking about like movies and stuff, I'm like they couldn't have possibly seen that. And like Southern accents and New York accents in the same place, oh my goodness, it's crazy. But like I guess that's kind of the charm of it. Now you'll remember the game because of the dialogue and all the voices. So it's a double-edged sword, right? I guess in some ways their belief is more in like localization, like to kind of like cater to the player base that they're localizing for, rather than just doing like a straight up translation or a slight alteration. So it's kind of an interesting take on it, and like that's what they were known for. And you'll see that in other Working Designs games, which I might actually get to at some point. But probably the next one I might do is Lunar. Like not like it won't be this game. The next game right now. The next game will be Xing Xianjian, which is called the new it's the XP edition of The Legend of Fairy and Sword, the original game. And yeah, well, I'll call it The Legend. I'll say Jian a lot for short, but you guys will know it as The Legend of Fairy and Sword. There's another name for it called Chinese Paladin. We don't care about that because Chinese Paladin sounds lame. And yeah, and it'll probably be a good way to me to use all that knowledge I got from Chinese period dramas and translate it on the fly. It'll be a nice experiment. So anyway, yeah, I mean, overall for Popful Mail, in some ways I kind of really enjoyed it, despite all the flaws. Like I was still able to notice I didn't use any guides whatsoever. I had no facts, and I had no facts, and there was only one time when someone on stream actually gave me a little bit of advice on how to beat a boss, but they didn't tell me, like in the end, like that's not enough to you can easily figure it out. And and the whole the whole you can shoot up, that was really helpful. I didn't really figure it out and then never thought about that, and that probably helped me with the game. So it was not completely guideless, but it was guideless. It was a friendly a friendly Twitch watch viewer, so it's not too bad. But yeah, you can actually get to this game without like me, and you can figure it out. So at least the game isn't. You can even though sometimes it's hard to tell where to go, but once you get an idea, you can go anywhere you want. And I love the fact that some of the innovations that I really liked from the game is the fact that I can teleport to different places, and the switching characters mechanic is actually really cool. And I actually found a use for the magician. Who would have thought? I mean, at first I was like, Tat is the most worthless character in the game. Oh wait, there's a boss that only he can take out, and then yeah, it's just stuff like that. And otherwise, would I recommend people to play it? Okay, so in my opinion, if you are a platformer person like me, or you have decent amount of skill, you have a decent amount of skill. You don't have to be a speedrunner. You just have to be willing and patient, and willing to get your hands dirty. Then this is a game you should give a try, because I think you'll be laughing like I did. There's some really really funny parts. Otherwise, if you're a person that's only playing turn-based games, you're not really interested in pushing your reflexes, then I might just watch a playthrough, and I will probably just watch all the dialogue and the stuff on YouTube. And actually, now that I've beaten the game, I might even watch the Japanese version to see what really changed, because I know I saw even what I saw was really really different. And it's almost a complete. Well, it's not a completely different game because the gameplay is exactly the same, but just the way the characters act, they're mostly the same, except some of the enemies are completely different. Anyway, so yeah, it's pretty good. It's not my favorite game I've ever played, or not my favorite game of this genre, which is more, I might say that's more Super Metroid or Castlevania Symphony of Night, but it's still worth playing just for just for the story. I can't believe I'm saying that. Normally games should be good without the story, but it's still pretty good with or without the story, but it's the story that makes it a bit more special. So anyway, I'm kind of done rattling off about it, and I'm really excited to start the Chinese game. And hopefully, yeah, things will go well, and then we'll be able to get started, and it'll be a lot of fun. So anyway, now I'm gonna sign off and wish you all a good night, and I'll see you later.